Title: 1757 to 2026. The same hands that looted us are back, but this time Pakistan will not bow. Duration: 15 to 18 minutes as of April 23rd, 2026. Studio microphone part 1. Extended hook, 1 minute 30 seconds, with full AI animation prompts. Midnight to 012. Opening, year 1757. 1757. A merchant ship appears on the horizon. The people of Hindustan watched it arrive. They were not afraid. Why would they be? Their own British reports recorded it. There was not a single beggar in this land. Not one. This was the wealthiest civilization on earth. Punjab was overflowing with grain. Bengal was the silk capital of the world. The Mughal Empire's GDP was 1/4 of the entire world's wealth. They welcomed the merchants. They had no idea what was coming. 012 to 030. The looting begins. The East India Company came to trade. It stayed to conquer. Within decades, the richest civilization on earth was on its knees. Famines were created deliberately. Millions starved, while grain was exported to Britain. Trillions upon trillions of pounds in gold, jewels, silk, cotton, spices were shipped away, never to return. One great nation was cut into 3 bleeding pieces. Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, 3 nations, 1 wound that is never fully healed. 030 to 050. Fast forward to 2026. 269 years later. April 2026. Look carefully at what is happening again. 22 nations, UK, France, Germany, the same European powers, are mobilizing their militaries in the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz, through which flows 20% of the world's oil, is being blockaded. Ships are being seized. A nation of 90 million people, Iran, is being strangled economically. Nearly 3,400 Iranians killed. More than 2,200 dead in Lebanon. And the poor nations of the world are paying for it through fuel prices, food inflation, and economic collapse. Tell me, does this not remind you of something? 050 to 110, Pakistan stands up, but this time, history has a different chapter. A nation of 240 million people decided, enough. Pakistan, the 5th most populous nation on earth. A nation whose land is bigger than UK, France, and Germany combined. A nuclear power. A nation that last year faced a threat 6 times its size. And did not flinch. This nation stepped forward and said, "We will bring the giants to the table." No army. No ultimatum. No threats. Just the most powerful currency in the world of diplomacy. Trust. Iran said, "We trust Pakistan." America said, "We trust Pakistan." And for the first time in modern history, a Muslim nation stood between 2 nuclear powers and said, "Not here, not on our watch." 110 to 130, the promise. Stay with me, because what Pakistan did next is one of the greatest underdog stories in modern history. And what is happening right now, today, April 2026, will determine whether the pattern of 1757 finally comes to an end or repeats itself one more time. This is a story nobody is telling. But at Karamat, Janjua will tell it. Watch until the end, because the last chapter has not been written yet. Chapter 3. The proposals on the table. Minutes midnight to 2:30. Welcome back. In part 1, we showed you how the war started, how the Strait of Hormuz was closed, how the world ran out of mediators, and how Pakistan stepped forward. Now, in part 2, we go inside negotiations. We show you what was actually on the table, the demands, the counter-demands, the moments that almost ended everything, and the extraordinary courage of one nation that absolutely refused to let peace die. Pause 2 seconds. Before the Islamabad talks even began, Pakistan had already been working for weeks. On March 25th, Pakistani officials personally delivered a 15-point proposal from the United States to Iran. 15 points. Each one a demand. Each one a red line. The American demands were enormous. First, Iran must completely end its nuclear program. Not pause it, not limit it, end it entirely. Second, Iran must place limits on its ballistic missiles. Third, the Strait of Hormuz must be reopened immediately. Fourth, Iran must stop supporting armed groups across the region. In Lebanon, in Iraq, in Yemen. In return, America offered sanctions relief. Iran's response was immediate and firm. No, an anonymous Iranian official told the media, Iran will end the war when it decides to, and when its own conditions are met. Iran then issued its own 5-point counterproposal. All U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran must stop. Security guarantees must be given, preventing future aggression. War reparations must be paid to Iran. All sanctions must be lifted. And, most controversially, Iran demanded international recognition of its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Two sides, 14,000 kilometers apart in their positions, and Pakistan, standing between them, trying to find common ground, where almost none existed. Pause 2 seconds. Then, on March 31st, Pakistan took another bold step. Together with China, Pakistan delivered its own 5-point peace initiative, calling for an immediate end to all hostilities, calling for humanitarian aid to reach those suffering, calling for all parties to return to dialogue. This was Pakistan speaking, not as a messenger, but as a peacemaker with its own vision, its own proposal, its own moral authority. The world took notice. Chapter 4, The Road to Ceasefire. Minutes 2:30 to 5 o'clock. By early April, the situation was becoming desperate. Oil prices had crossed $100 a barrel. Global markets were in turmoil. Ships were still stranded. And both sides were still fighting. Something needed to break. On April 5th, Trump threatened again. He said he would attack Iran's power plants and bridges. If the Strait of Hormuz was not reopened, Iran's Revolutionary Guard responded, the strait will not be open to the enemies of this nation. The world held its breath. And then something remarkable happened. On April 6th, indirect talks in Islamabad produced a proposal. Pakistan put forward a framework, a 45-day ceasefire, 2 phases, structured negotiations. Iran declined the 45 days. But crucially, Iran did not walk away. Iran said it wanted a permanent solution, not a temporary pause. And in that response, Pakistan saw an opening, because a nation that wants a permanent solution is a nation that wants peace. It just needs the right conditions. Pause 2 seconds. April 7th, the most dramatic day in this entire story. Trump posted a message that chilled the world. A whole civilization will die tonight, never be brought back, if Iran does not reach an agreement. Those words, posted publicly, seen by hundreds of millions of people. The clock was ticking. In Islamabad, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was on the phone, not sleeping, not resting, working. Field Marshal Asim Munir, activating every channel. Ishaq Dar, calling Washington and Tehran simultaneously. And then that evening, Trump posted again. This time, different words. He had agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. Iran had agreed to the conditions. The guns went silent. The missiles stopped flying. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif posted on social media, and his words became historic. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America, along with their allies, have agreed to an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere, effective immediately. Pakistan had done it, against every odd, against every doubt. Pakistan had stopped a war, at least for now. Chapter 5, The Islamabad talks in detail. Minutes 5 to 8 o'clock, 4 days after the ceasefire. Islamabad declared public holidays. Government offices closed. Schools closed. The entire capital transformed. The Serena Hotel, Pakistan's most prestigious venue, located inside the heavily secured red zone, was requisitioned entirely for the delegations. Every room, every floor, every corridor, checked, secured, prepared. More than 10,000 security personnel deployed. Police, paramilitary forces, Military coordination. The entire city on high alert for the most important event in Pakistan's diplomatic history. Pause 2 seconds. The American team that arrived was extraordinary. Vice President J.D. Vance, 41 years old, former U.S. Marine, Yale Law School graduate, a man who had once been Trump's fiercest critic and had become his most loyal partner. Alongside him, Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, a real estate developer turned diplomat, and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, the architect of the Abraham Accords, the man who had already been quietly negotiating with Iran and Oman before the war even started. 300 people in total, the full diplomatic, military, and intelligence weight of the United States of America, had arrived in Islamabad. Pakistan received them with dignity, with warmth, with the confidence of a nation that knows its own worth. Pause 2 seconds. The Iranian team was equally formidable. Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, a former general, a former mayor of Tehran, a man who had commanded forces in the Iran-Iraq War. Tough, experienced, unbreakable, and beside him, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, 63 years old, a doctorate from the University of Kent in Britain, the chief negotiator of the 2015 nuclear deal, the most skilled Iranian diplomat of his generation, a man who had looked American negotiators in the eye before and walked away with a deal. 70 people in the Iranian delegation, every one of them a professional, one former U.S. diplomat who had been involved in the 2015 deal, told the media bluntly, Iran knows their portfolios. They are not out of their league at this table. This was no ordinary negotiation. This was the highest level meeting between the United States and Iran since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. 47 years of silence, broken in Islamabad, in Pakistan. Pause 3 seconds. The talks were structured in 3 rounds. The first round, indirect, Pakistani mediators moving between 2 separate rooms, carrying messages, testing positions, translating anger into diplomatic language. This is the most delicate phase of any negotiation, because both sides needed to feel heard before they were willing to listen. Pakistan understood this and spent hours carefully building the conditions for the 2 sides to finally sit together. Then came round 2, face-to-face. Americans and Iranians in the same room for the first time in nearly 5 decades, looking at each other across a table. In Islamabad, Pakistan, think about what that image means. Think about what Pakistan achieved simply by getting those 2 delegations into the same room. The round 3 continued through the night, past midnight, into the early morning, 21 hours total. Pakistan never leaving the table. Pakistan never giving up. Chapter 6. The moment talks nearly collapsed. Minutes 8 to 10 o'clock. But here is what the world never saw. At one critical point in the talks, the Iranian delegation stood up to leave. The reason? Trump, sitting thousands of miles away in Washington, posted statements on social media claiming that Iran had agreed to things they had not agreed to, including the complete handover of all enriched uranium. Iran publicly rejected these claims. Iranian officials were furious. Privately, even some American officials admitted Trump's posts were damaging the talks. The sea of mistrust between the 2 nations, which Pakistan had spent weeks trying to drain, was suddenly flooding back, and Iran's delegation, insulted and angry, was preparing to walk out. In that moment, Pakistan did what only Pakistan could do. Pakistani mediators moved. Quickly, quietly, they spoke to both sides. They reframed the language. They acknowledged Iran's frustration. They calmed the American side. And they did something that no diplomat's manual teaches. They reminded both sides why they were there. Not for politics, not for pride, for their people, for the families in Iran still counting the dead, for the sailors trapped on ships in the strait, for the ordinary people in every nation, paying more for food and fuel because of this war. The Iranian delegation sat back down. The talks continued. And that moment, that invisible, unrecorded moment, may have been the single most important diplomatic act in this entire extraordinary story. Pause 3 seconds. The talks ended on April 12th without a final deal. The main issues remained unresolved. Iran's nuclear program, the status of the Strait of Hormuz, $6 billion in frozen assets, sanctions, security guarantees. J.D. Vance told reporters, "The bad news is we have not reached an agreement." And I think that's bad news for Iran, much more than it's bad news for the United States. But Iran's Foreign Minister Arachi said something different, something more honest. He said they had been inches from a memorandum of understanding. Inches. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, who had worked without sleep through the entire negotiation, stood before the cameras and said, "On behalf of Pakistan, I express gratitude to both sides for appreciating Pakistan's efforts. We hope both sides continue with a positive spirit to achieve durable peace and prosperity for the entire region and beyond." Those words, measured, dignified, hopeful, were Pakistan's answer to every person who called the talks a failure. Chapter 7, The Blockade and the Breakdown, minutes 10 to 12 o'clock. One day after the talks ended, Trump made a decision that shook everything. On April 13th, he announced a full naval blockade of Iran. The United States Central Command, the most powerful military force on Earth, would now intercept any vessel originating from or destined for Iranian ports. Iran called it what it was. Foreign Minister Arachi posted publicly, "Blockading Iranian ports is an act of war, and thus a violation of the ceasefire. Striking a commercial vessel and taking its crew hostage is an even greater violation." The ceasefire that Pakistan had worked so hard to achieve was now under direct threat, and the prospects for a second round of talks were fading fast. Pause 2 seconds. Over the following days, the crisis deepened. On April 19th, the USS Spruance intercepted the Iranian-flagged cargo ship MV Tuskha in the North Arabian Sea. Iran called it piracy. The U.S. called enforcement of the blockade. On April 22nd, Iran's Revolutionary Guard seized 2 more vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, the MSC Francesca, the Epaminondas. A third ship, the Euphoria, was attacked. Meanwhile, Iranian Parliamentary Speaker Galibaf posted on social media accusing Trump of imposing a siege and violating the ceasefire, and of trying to turn the negotiations into a table of surrender. Iran's chief negotiator warned that Tehran had new cards on the battlefield that had not yet been revealed. The world was back on the edge. Pause 2 seconds. And through all of this, Pakistan never stopped. Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar met personally with the acting U.S. ambassador in Islamabad, urging a ceasefire extension, then met with China's ambassador, coordinating diplomatic pressure, closing Pakistan streets around the Serena Hotel. Minute 1500 hours, decorated with banners. If you are watching this, prepare for a second Pakistan will succeed. Pakistan had not taken them down. Tell the world Pakistan had not given up. Are you in America Pakistan? Had listened in the USA, again, in the UK, in Iran? Tell us, because this story belongs to all of us. Subscribe to at Karamat Janjua. Part 3 is coming. The Friday talks. The final push for peace. The outcome that will define the Middle East for a generation. We will be there, covering every moment. Because on this channel, the underdog always wins. Bismillah and thank you